Before I start the story, here's a quick preview. Dr. Brown travels back in time to uncover the truth behind the construction of the pyramids. When his time machine breaks, he's forced to observe in silence as aliens command humans with terrifying precision. He witnesses technology being used he can hardly fathom. What began as a search for answers becomes a chilling discovery humanity was never meant to know. If you enjoy the content, please like the video and subscribe to my channel, Nightmare Archives. Dr. Emory Brown traced his fingers over the curved metal shell of what his colleagues had mockingly dubbed the history egg. Dimly lit by the basement laboratory's fluorescent lights, the machine resembled a sleek metal cocoon large enough to fit a single occupant. Its burnished exterior reflected his tired face, the deep-set eyes of a man who had sacrificed everything for this moment. "Final systems check complete," he announced to the empty room, his voice echoing off concrete walls covered in equations and historical timelines. No graduate students remained. They had abandoned the project months ago when university funding dried up. No colleagues stood witness. They had distanced themselves from his academic suicide mission years earlier. Emory didn't care. At 52, with a divorce finalized and his tenure hanging by a thread, he had nothing left but the question that had consumed him since childhood: how were the pyramids really built? The conventional explanations never satisfied him. Not the ramps, not the pulleys, not the armies of laborers. The precision was too perfect, the timeline too compressed, the engineering too advanced. Yet the alternative theories were equally ridiculous: aliens, lost civilizations, anti-gravity. Without evidence, they were just stories. But today, he would have his answer. He climbed into the machine, settling into the contoured seat surrounded by blinking displays. The temporal displacement field would create a perfect observation bubble. Invisible, intangible, allowing him to witness history without disturbing it. 6 hours of observation time before the field collapsed and pulled him home automatically. 6 hours to document the greatest archaeological mystery on Earth. Computer, activate temporal protocols, he commanded, sliding closed the curved hatch. Destination, Giza Plateau, Egypt, 2560 BCE. The machine hummed to life. Lights danced across the control panel. A slight vibration built beneath him. Beginning temporal displacement in 10 seconds, the computer announced. 9, 8. Emory closed his eyes, breathing deeply. His life's work culminating in this leap of faith. 3, 2, 1. Displacement initiated. The world dissolved into blinding light. Emory's body felt simultaneously compressed and expanded, as if every atom were being catalogued and rearranged. A high-pitched whine filled his ears, growing to an unbearable shriek. Something was wrong. The machine shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed red across every display. Instead of the gentle drift through time the simulations had promised, Emory felt like he was being hurled forward with terrible force. System failure, the computer's voice announced with alarming calm. Temporal bubble unstable. Cafe, the voice cut off. The screens went dark. For a terrifying moment, there was nothing but silence and absolute darkness. Then came the impact. Metal screamed against stone. Emory's head slammed forward, then back against the headrest. Sparks erupted from the control panel. The smell of burnt circuitry filled the cabin. When the machine finally stopped moving, Emory sat stunned, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. "Computer, status report." He groaned. No response. He tried the emergency release. The hatch opened with a reluctant hiss, letting in a blast of hot, dry air. Bright sunlight poured in, momentarily blinding him. When his vision cleared, Emory found himself looking at sand. Endless sand, stretching toward distant rocky outcroppings. The machine had plowed a deep furrow into a dune, half buried now in the fine grains. He pulled himself out, staggering as his feet touched the scorching sand. After retrieving his emergency pack, water, protein concentrates, first aid supplies, and recording equipment, he climbed to the crest of the nearest dune to assess his situation. The sight that greeted him stole his breath away. In the distance, the Giza Plateau rose from the desert floor, but instead of the familiar completed pyramids, he saw structures in various stages of construction. The Great Pyramid, Khufu's eternal monument, stood perhaps 2/3 complete, its top unfinished, while Khafre's was barely begun. The baseline of Menkaur's had just been laid out. He had made it. He was actually here. It worked, he whispered, then laughed deliriously. It actually worked. His elation was short-lived. The machine, his only way home, lay broken behind him, its sleek form now dented and warped, with smoke still curling from several panels. He climbed back down and tried the computer again. Nothing. The temporal displacement field generator, the heart of the machine, had cracked clean through. He was stranded. Panic threatened to overwhelm him, but scientific curiosity quickly reasserted itself. He might be stuck, but he was still the first human being to witness ancient Egypt with his own eyes. He would document everything, Pray someone eventually found the wreckage of his machine, and hope his recordings survived the millennia. Emery extracted his main recording device, a high-capacity, solar-powered tablet with a 3-dimensional imaging capabilities, and activated it. Log entry 1. Dr. Emery Brown, I have successfully traveled to ancient Egypt, approximately 2560 BCE based on the construction stage of the pyramids visible from my position. The machine appears catastrophically damaged. Return may be impossible. He paused, swallowing hard. Nevertheless, I intend to fulfill my mission. I will observe and document the construction methods of the Great Pyramids for as long as my supplies last. He scanned the horizon, plotted the sun's position, and began walking toward a cluster of rocky outcroppings that would provide better cover. The weight of his water supply reminded him of his precarious situation. 10 days of careful rationing at most. But the thought didn't depress him. If anything, it sharpened his focus. He had come for truth, and he would have it before the end. By nightfall, Emery had established a small observation post among the rocks, with a clear view of the construction site. Through his high-powered digital binoculars, he could see the massive encampment of workers spread below the plateau. Thousands of them, not the slaves of a popular imagination but what appeared to be organized teams of laborers. As darkness fell, he expected the work to stop. It didn't. Great torches and oil lamps illuminated the site, casting long shadows across the sand. The workers continued their labor without pause. Even at this distance, something about their movements disturbed Emery. There was a mechanical precision to them, a synchronization that seemed almost choreographed. Log entry 2, he whispered into his recorder. Night has fallen, but construction continues. Worker movements display unusual uniformity. I cannot yet explain it, but... A brilliant light cut through the darkness, silencing him mid-sentence. From high above, descending slowly toward the construction site, came an enormous object, perfect disk, its underside pulsing with blue-white light. It hovered silently over the unfinished peak of the Great Pyramid. Emery's hands trembled as he adjusted his binoculars. This was not a natural phenomenon, not a meteorological event, not anything explainable by 21st century science. My God, he breathed. They were right. The disk's underside opened. A beam of intense white light shot downward, connecting with the pyramid's unfinished apex. Within this column of light, massive stone blocks rose as if weightless, guided into perfect position by unseen forces. Below, the workers continued their synchronized movements, seemingly unaffected by the impossible scene above them. Emery zoomed in further. Among the human workers moved taller figures, at least 7 feet in height, draped in dark robes that obscured their features. They carried no whips, no weapons, yet the workers responded to their presence with immediate obedience, changing direction or task whenever the tall figures approached. Log entry 3, Emery recorded, his voice barely above a whisper. I am witnessing non-human intelligence directing the pyramid construction. Anti-gravity technology is being employed to position the largest blocks. Human workers appear to be under some form of control. Their movements suggest neural influence rather than physical coercion. Another disk appeared on the horizon, then another. Soon, 5 massive craft hovered above the plateau, their combined light turning night into an eerie blue day. Emery ducked lower behind his rocky shelter, suddenly aware of his vulnerability. He had come seeking truth and found it, but at what cost? He was alone, stranded thousands of years from home, watching alien beings direct one of humanity's greatest achievements, and they had no idea they were being observed. Or did they? As this question formed in his mind, one of the robed figures on the plateau stopped suddenly and turned. Even at this distance, Emery felt a chill run through him as the figure seemed to look directly toward his hiding place. For a long, terrible moment he felt seen, truly seen, across the impossible distance. Then the figure turned away, resuming its supervision of the workers. Emery's hands shook as he clutched his recorder close. I don't know if I'll survive to see these pyramids completed, he whispered into the device. But I will record everything. Someone, someday, must know the truth. In the strange blue light of the alien craft, the Great Pyramid's growing silhouette cast a long shadow across the ancient desert. A shadow that seemed to reach directly toward the hidden, time-lost observer who had come too far, learned too much, and now had nowhere to go. 3 days had passed since Emery's arrival. His water supply dwindled faster than anticipated, in the merciless Egyptian heat. The recorder's solar charging function worked perfectly under the blazing sun. But the same could not be said for his body, which grew weaker with each passing hour. Yet fatigue and dehydration did nothing to diminish his scientific curiosity. If anything, the precariousness of his situation intensified his determination to document everything before his inevitable end. Log entry 17, he whispered into the recorder. Dawn, day 4. I've observed 3 complete cycles of work shifts. The pattern is becoming clear. The humans work in 12-hour rotations, but they never seem to tire. Their movements maintain the same mechanical precision, regardless of how long they've been working. Emory had ventured closer to the construction site each night, risking detection to gather more detailed observations. What he witnessed defied every archaeological theory ever proposed about the pyramids. The workers themselves appeared physically normal, indigenous Egyptians alongside what seemed to be laborers from neighboring regions. But their eyes told a different story. Even from his hiding place, Emory could see the vacant stare, the absence of emotion or fatigue. Most disturbing was their silence. Thousands of workers, yet the only sounds were footsteps and the scraping of stone. No calls, no commands, no human communication of any kind. I must get closer, he muttered to himself. I need to see how they're controlling them. His plan was simple but desperate. During his observations, he had noticed supply caravans arriving regularly from the east, food, water, and materials delivered by merchants who seemed unaffected by whatever controlled the workers. If he could disguise himself and blend with these outsiders, he might infiltrate the site itself. From his emergency pack, Emory extracted a compact fabric square that expanded into a desert cloak, designed for emergency survival. It wasn't authentic to the period, but from a distance it would pass. He smeared dirt on his face and hands to mask his complexion, and gathered what remained of his supplies. The recorder went into a hidden pocket, set to passive audio capture. Log entry 18. He recorded as he prepared to leave his rocky shelter. I'm attempting to infiltrate the construction site. If I don't survive, let the record show I died in pursuit of truth. A dawn was breaking as Emory approached a small caravan making its way toward the plateau. He kept his distance, following behind until they reached the encampment that surrounded the construction site. Heart pounding, he mingled with the arriving merchants, keeping his head down and his movements deliberate. No one questioned his presence. The caravan workers themselves, he noted, kept their interactions brief and purely transactional, as if afraid to linger too long near the construction site. Within an hour, Emory found himself standing at the base of the Great Pyramid, surrounded by the controlled workers and their mysterious overseers. Up close, the scale was breathtaking. Blocks of limestone, each weighing tons, lay in precise rows. The precision of their placement, joints so tight no blade could fit between them, seemed impossible without modern tools. Yet here it was, happening before his eyes. And then there were the overseers. From a distance they had appeared merely tall and robed. Up close they inspired primal terror. They stood at least 7 feet tall, their bodies concealed beneath dark hooded cloaks. Where their faces should have been, Emory saw only shadow, occasionally pierced by a glint of reflected light that suggested eyes watching from the darkness. They moved silently among the workers, never touching them, never speaking. Yet whenever one approached, the workers in its vicinity would immediately adjust their actions, changing direction, modifying their technique, working faster or slower. They're communicating telepathically, Emory whispered into his hidden recorder. Some form of direct neural interface. The workers' eyes, they're not just vacant. The pupils are dilated, constant, regardless of light conditions. He risked moving closer to observe the actual stonework. What he saw challenged everything he knew about ancient construction techniques. The massive blocks weren't being dragged into place by ropes and brute force. Instead, the workers gathered around each stone with handheld devices resembling curved metal rods. When activated, these rods emitted a faint vibration that Emory could feel through the ground beneath his feet. The stone blocks under the influence of these devices became lighter. Not weightless, but manageable enough for teams of 8 men to guide into position with perfect precision. It wasn't anti-gravity technology as he had first thought, but something more subtle, a manipulation of mass or density. They're not cutting these stones, he recorded, voice trembling with excitement. They're molding them somehow. The limestone is being rendered temporarily malleable through vibration technology. That explains the perfect seams. They're fused, not stacked. His observations were interrupted by a commotion nearby. A worker had collapsed, blood trickling from his nose and ears. The nearest overseer glided toward the fallen man. From beneath its robes emerged a thin, jointed appendage that was decidedly not human. At its end was a device that emitted a soft blue light. The overseer scanned the worker's body with this light. After a moment, it made a gesture that Emory interpreted as dismissal. 2 other workers immediately stopped their tasks, collected their fallen comrade, and carried him away. Their expressions never changed. They're burning them out, Emory realized aloud. Neural interface too intense, brain hemorrhage. They're expendable. He followed the workers carrying the body to the edge of the site, where dozens of other bodies lay in neat rows awaiting disposal. None showed external injuries. All had the same dried blood trails from ears, noses, or eyes. Sickened, Emery turned away only to find himself face to face with an overseer. He froze, throat constricting with terror. The hooded figure towered over him, its hidden face angled down toward his. For an eternal moment neither moved. Then slowly, a thin appendage emerged from within the robe. At its end was the same scanning device he had seen earlier. The blue light played over his body from head to toe. "You should not be here." The words formed directly in Emery's mind, not heard, but felt, accompanied by a pressure behind his eyes that threatened to split his skull. He staggered backward, fighting to maintain consciousness. Wrong pattern, wrong time. The telepathic intrusion intensified. Images flashed through Emery's mind. His laboratory, his time machine, the temporal displacement field, extracted directly from his memories. With a tremendous effort of will, Emery broke eye contact and ran. He expected pursuit, capture, death. But none came. Looking back, he saw the overseer still watching him, motionless. It knew what he was, yet it had let him go. Why? Emery didn't stop running until he reached the safety of his rocky hiding place, collapsing in exhaustion and terror. When he finally caught his breath, he activated his recorder with trembling hands. "Log entry 19, he gasped. "They know. They scanned me, rid my mind. They know I'm from the future, yet they let me go." He paused, trying to make sense of what had happened. "But there's something else. When it was in my mind, I was briefly in its mind too. I saw beneath the construction site. There's something there, something older than the pyramids themselves." As night fell, the familiar lights of the alien craft appeared above the plateau. But this time, Emery watched with new understanding. They weren't building the pyramids as monuments or tombs. The precision, the specific measurements, the astronomical alignments. They were creating instruments, tools of some kind, whose purpose he couldn't fathom. Log entry 20, he recorded as the blue, white light bathed the desert. "Need to see what's beneath the pyramid." The overseer's Madmi tunnels, chambers not documented in any archaeological record. Something was there before they started building. Sleep eluded him that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he felt the alien presence in his mind again. By dawn, he had made his decision. He would return to the construction site, but this time, he would look for a way beneath it. Log entry 21, "I'm going back. They know what I am now, so disguise is pointless. I need to understand what they're building and why." He paused, then added, "If these recordings are ever found, know that I acted not just out of scientific curiosity, but because I believe this knowledge is crucial. The pyramids are more than monuments. They're devices, and they may still be active in my time." As the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows from the unfinished pyramids across the desert, Emery Brown prepared for what would likely be his final expedition. His water would last perhaps 2 more days. His food was nearly gone, but he had come 5,000 years into the past for answers. And now, with the barrier between his mind and theirs temporarily breached, he knew where to look. Beneath the sands of Giza lay something older than human civilization. Something the aliens had not built but found, and whatever it was, they were using humanity to help them activate it. Emery approached the construction site as the midday sun reached its zenith. No longer hiding, no longer disguised. Just a man walking purposefully toward the greatest archaeological mystery of all time, now revealed as something far more sinister than he'd ever imagined. His water flask held less than a day's supply. His protein concentrates were gone. The solar-powered recorder, at least, remained fully functional, capturing what might be humanity's most important testimony. Log entry 22, he spoke quietly as he walked. "The overseers have established a pattern. They concentrate at the north face of the Great Pyramid during midday. Whatever lies beneath, that's where the entrance must be." Workers parted around him like water around a stone, never acknowledging his presence. Their eyes remained fixed forward, pupils dilated despite the harsh sunlight. Up close, Emery noticed thin, almost invisible filaments extending from the base of their skulls. Not physical implants, but something closer to energy tendrils, visible only when the light struck them at certain angles. "Neural parasites," he recorded. "Not mechanical implants, but something organic or semi-organic. They're connected directly to the brainstem." The overseers moved among the workers, their tall, robed forms casting long shadows across the limestone blocks. They seemed to be ignoring Emery completely, which struck him as more unsettling than if they had confronted him. They knew what he was. They had been inside his mind. Yet they allowed him to walk freely among their operation. Unless they wanted him here. The thought sent a chill through him despite the crushing heat. Near the base of the Great Pyramid, Emery spotted what he was looking for. A narrow passage that descended beneath the structure, temporarily exposed as workers cleared debris from around it. No tourists would ever see this entrance. It would be sealed and hidden long before the pyramid's completion. He slipped inside, descending a steep ramp that plunged deep beneath the pyramid's foundation. The air grew cooler, damper. The sounds of construction faded behind him. His only light came from the small emergency flashlight attached to his recorder. The passage opened into a chamber that defied everything Emery knew about ancient Egyptian construction. The walls were perfectly smooth, made not of limestone blocks but of a seamless material that resembled polished obsidian. Intricate patterns covered the surfaces, not hieroglyphics, but complex mathematical sequences that seemed to shift and change as his light played across them. Log entry 23, he whispered, voice echoing in the chamber. I found a structure beneath the pyramid. It predates the construction above. The material is unlike anything I've seen. Not stone, not metal. The patterns appear to be mathematical formulas or coordinates, and at the center of the chamber stood an object that resembled an altar. Its surface was covered with indentations arranged in a spiral pattern. Emery approached cautiously, playing his light over the strange configuration. The moment his light touched the central indentation, the entire chamber came alive. The patterns on the walls began to glow with an internal blue light. The air filled with a low hum that Emery felt in his bones more than heard with his ears. It's activating, he gasped into the recorder. Some kind of technology responding to light or perhaps my presence. But the spiral pattern on the altar began to rotate, though the surface itself remained still. It was as if the pattern existed in a different dimension, overlaid but not physically part of the object. Suddenly a beam of light shot upward from the altar, projecting what appeared to be a three-dimensional map of the stars. Emery recognized our solar system, then watched in awe as the projection expanded to show neighboring stars, then our entire galaxy and finally, multiple galaxies connected by pulsing lines of light. It's a map, he recorded, circling the projection in wonder. A transit system of some kind. The pyramids aren't monuments, they're markers, beacons. As he studied the projection, something moved at the edge of his vision. An overseer had entered the chamber, followed by another and another. They formed a circle around him, silent sentinels watching his every move. Now you understand. The thought formed in his mind, accompanied by the same painful pressure he had experienced before. But this time he was ready for it, maintaining his mental barriers. What are they for? Emery asked aloud, gesturing to the projection of galaxies. Waypoints. Nodes. The great network was established before your kind learned to make fire. Why use humans to build them? Why not construct them yourselves? The pressure in his mind increased, nearly bringing him to his knees. We cannot build. We can only guide. The hands of the indigenous species must shape the markers or the resonance fails. Images flooded Emery's mind. Hundreds of worlds, thousands of structures like the pyramids, built by different species across the galaxy. Some resembled Earth's monuments, others were utterly alien in design. All served the same purpose of points in a vast network of cosmic transit. You're not the builders, Emery realized. You're just the overseers. You work for someone. Something else. The overseer closest to him moved forward. Its hood fell back slightly, revealing glimpses of a face that was neither fully organic nor fully mechanical. A hybrid form evolved or designed for the singular purpose of traveling between worlds and ensuring the construction of these markers. We prepare the way. They will come when the network node is complete. Who will come? Instead of answering, the overseer raised a jointed appendage. The device at its end emitted the familiar blue light, but this time it focused into a narrow beam that struck Emery directly between the eyes. He felt no pain, only a sudden expansion of awareness. For a brief, terrible moment, he perceived the true scope of the network. Millions of years old, spanning not just space but time itself. The pyramids were not just physical structures but temporal anchors, stabilizing points in the continuum. And they had been watching him since the moment his time machine appeared. When the beam shut off, Emery collapsed to his knees, the recorder clutched tightly in his hand. Log entry 24. He gasped, fighting to maintain consciousness. They've shown me the truth. The pyramids are part of something vast. A network of transit points through space and time. They knew I was coming. My arrival was expected. The overseers formed a tighter circle around him. One of them gestured toward the altar. The star map projection changed, focusing now on a specific point within our solar system. Not Earth, but a location in space between Mars and Jupiter. The node activates in 3,000 of your years. What you call the 21st century. The alignment comes, the way opens. With horrifying clarity, Emery understood. His obsession with the pyramids, his drive to build a time machine, his accident that stranded him here. None of it was random. He had been influenced, guided, perhaps even controlled from afar across time itself. You brought me here, he whispered. Look, witness. Rickard, return to your time with proof. Prepare then. Return, but my machine is destroyed. The overseer pointed to the altar once more. The spiral pattern stopped rotating and resolved into a set of coordinates, temporal coordinates that Emery recognized immediately. They were offering him a way home, but the glimpse he'd had of the true purpose of the network filled him with dread. What was coming through once the node activated, in his own time? Was he being sent back as a herald or a warning? What happens when the network activates? He demanded. What comes through? The pressure in his mind returned, but this time accompanied by images so alien, so utterly incomprehensible that his conscious mind could not process them. Shapes that existed in more dimensions than humans could perceive. Entities that were neither matter nor energy but something beyond both. Emery backed away from the altar, from the offered coordinates, from the chance to return. No, he said firmly. I won't be your messenger. The overseers remained motionless for a long moment. Then as one they turned toward a new arrival entering the chamber. This overseer was different, taller, its robes a deeper shade of darkness. When it communicated, the pressure in Emery's mind was almost unbearable. Then you will be component. The chamber's blue light suddenly intensified. Emery felt his body growing lighter, his very molecules beginning to separate. The sensation wasn't painful, it was more like dissolving, becoming one with the light itself. With his last coherent thought, he activated the recorder one final time. Log entry 25, he managed, his voice already becoming diffuse and distant. The pyramids are not monuments or markers. Beacons. The reason we still don't understand them is because we were never meant to. His body continued to break down, component atoms being absorbed into the chamber's walls, becoming part of the very structure he had come to study. As consciousness faded, he made one last desperate transmission, hoping that somehow across the millennia, someone might receive his warning. Final log. My coordinates are embedded in this signal. Find this chamber. Understand what's coming. But whatever you do, don't come looking for me. The recorder clattered to the obsidian floor, its final transmission sending one brief pulse through the temporal continuum before falling silent. The overseers gathered around it, their mission complete. The witness had become part of the beacon, his atoms adding the necessary human resonance to the ancient technology. 5,000 years later, in a university laboratory filled with humming equipment, a temporal receiver picked up a single fragmentary transmission, static-filled, barely audible, but unmistakably human. The pyramids are markers. Don't come looking for me. Then silence. The coordinates embedded in the signal pointed to a location deep beneath the Great Pyramid, a chamber no archaeologist had ever discovered, sealed away for thousands of years, waiting for the alignment, waiting for the node to activate, waiting for the way to open.
It takes a lot of time to create these videos. I would really appreciate your support. All I ask for is a quick like on the video and subscribe. Thank you so much.